All right. Hi guys. Good afternoon. Hopefully you're able to see me, hear me, and also see the screen, right? And yes, so I think it's time and we can get started. So again, if you can see everything properly, just send a hi, good evening, something in the chat so that I know the setup is fine and we can get started. Perfect. So two quick things before we get started with the session. As always, number one, the code or everything else has been updated in the repository. So again, this is the link to the repository, right? So everything that we've discussed till the previous session has been updated over here. You can go ahead and take a look. Once this session gets done, I will update this session code and everything as well, right? Now, the second important thing, listen very carefully regarding the projects and the abstracts. So I have had a word with the team and the abstracts will be sent to you in 2 days, right? So which is by Wednesday, you will receive your group names, like who is in your group, along with the topic or the abstract, which will be allocated to your group, right? So in the next 2 days, you will receive it. We have already started sending it out today to some colleges. We'll send it to others as well. Since there are so many colleges and so many people, it's taking a little bit of time. But latest by Wednesday, which is before the next session, you will receive the project abstract along with your group list, right? So that's the update on the project front. Again, I'll quickly repeat for everybody who was asking me about projects and the abstract bit. So we have already started sending them out, and in the next 2 days we'll send it out to everyone. Since there are so many colleges and so many students, we are going through it one by one because it's a manual process. We have to make teams, allocate a topic, and send. It's taking a little longer. So yes, by the next session, which is by Wednesday, all of you should have received the project abstract as well as the names of people who are working or who you will be working with for the project, right? Regarding the next bit is the assignment. So again, I have already given you the link to the assignment in the previous session on Friday. The assignment is around JavaScript, right? And it is basically very simple assignment, color flipper. So again, that is something that you have to finish off by Friday, right? So by Friday, you have to finish the assignment. And on Friday, we'll give you the next assignment, which will be based on what we discussed this week, right? So yes, those are the three important updates. The repository has been updated. You will receive your project abstracts and group names by Wednesday, and the assignment deadline for the JavaScript assignment is Friday. And then I'll give you an assignment on React on Friday for the next week, right? So yes, those are a couple of quick updates. And with that, now let's jump into the session for today. And the topic, again, a lot of people ask about this later. So please note down the topic if you want to. The topic for today's session is React.js, right? So we are finally going to start with React today. And we'll require about 4 sessions or 4 to 5 sessions for React, right? So the target is by the end of the month, right? By the end of the month, we should basically finish off the content in terms of the content discussion, and then you have a few more weeks to work on your project. But we should finish off all the technical details over here. So Gopika, again, I have been sharing assignment links in the chat myself. So I will not entertain this email not received, message not received. No problem. You are in the session. I have given you the assignment link, which means you have the assignment link, right? Simple as that. Again, please take a screenshot of this. The assignment links for both the assignments are available on this link. So again, for everybody who is saying they don't receive emails, no problem. No problem. I am giving you the link right now. Please open this link. You have assignment over there, right? If you open this URL, both the assignment links are available over there. So if you have not received it before, no problem. Open it right now and save this link. Okay, this link contains the link for both assignments. It contains the link for LMS. It also contains the link for all previous recordings along with all code and PPTs. So everything that you need is already available on this link, which I am sharing right now on the screen, right? So please take a screenshot. Please note this link down. Again, I will not entertain this idea of link not received because I am sharing it in the session. So it doesn't really matter if you get an email or not. You already have the link because I've shared it in the session. Simple as that, right? Perfect. Coming back to today's topic. So like I said, today we are going to start off with React, and it is very important to discuss this properly. And hence we'll require a few sessions, 4 to 5 sessions on React, wherein 3 sessions we'll learn different things, and then in 2 to 3 sessions we'll create a project using React, right? So that's what I have planned. So hopefully by next week we should finish off React. Then we'll have 1 week for MongoDB and 1 week for backend, right? Backend as in the Express JS part. It's very simple, not very difficult, right? So that's the breakdown for the topics. So people who again have been asking me about when we are covering which topic. So we'll try to finish off all the topics by the end of this month, right? Which is by March end last week. So the first 2 weeks of March will be around the first 2 weeks of March will be around React. Then the third week is MongoDB, and then the fourth week is Express. So those are that's the topic background breakdown for the rest of the month. And that brings us to the end of the training. Those are all the topics that we need to cover. We are finally starting with our MERN today. So far, we have not really discussed anything in terms of MERN, right? So if you remember again, MERN is MongoDB, Express.js, React.js, and Node.js. So finally, today we are starting with the R of our MERN training, that is React.js. Obviously, all of this will be done in JavaScript. We will also be using HTML and CSS. So everything that we have seen so far is still applicable to this framework and to the backend framework as well, right? So yes, let's jump in and get started. So the very first thing that we need to quickly recap is what we've covered in the previous session. So if you remember in the last session, we ended our discussion on something called an API, that was an application programming interface. So I gave you the example of random user. If you remember, we checked this platform called randomuser.me, and this platform basically gives us random user details. So again, we'll talk more about that later. I think in the third session, when we discuss hooks in React, we'll talk more about API calls as well. And then we will create our own APIs when we get to Express. So we'll talk about those as well, right? And yes. So the next thing that we also discussed in the last session was a little about JSON. So remember, I told you that this is a common currency format which exists, basically data exchange format, which resembles our real world currencies in a way. Right? So just like we have a rupee, wherein both the shopkeeper and the customer agree on a common currency, in the exact same way, when we are dealing with this internet or different applications on the internet, when we need applications to talk to each other or interact with each other, we basically need the JSON format. So this is the format in which we pass the data. Again, we will use this a lot when it comes to React as well, right? So that is something that we will again discuss eventually, but we've already seen this in brief in the previous session. Now, this is our agenda for today. Again, I'm going to start from the very basics. I am assuming you have no idea what React is. So we'll start from scratch. We'll start from creating a new application and all the way to then seeing how can we create a new React component, right? So we'll start from scratch and we'll slowly build up a React application over the next couple of sessions. So again, I am assuming that you have no idea what React is. I am assuming that you have never built a React application before. But of course, I am also assuming that you know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript by now. Those three things you need to know in order to be able to build React application. So I am assuming you know those things, and now we can start, right? So when it comes to React, right, what React basically is in their terminology, they call themselves a UI library. They call themselves a UI library. So if you just visit the official documentation, let me just share my screen again, and I'll just open the official website. So the official website is called react.dev, right? Here is the screen. I hope you can see the entire screen now, right? So in the React JS official website is called react.dev, right? React.dev. And here you can see they call themselves a library. So they say it's a library for web and native user interfaces. And if you scroll down, you will see some really good examples of what this is and how this works pretty much. They have a very decent example over here. You can actually interact with these things and you can see the animations and the code changes and all of that. But at the end of the day, what React basically is that it is a bunch of so I like to call it a framework of a sort, wherein whenever we are required to create a single page application, it also known as an SPA, single page application. Whenever we want to create a single page application, right, we use React. And yes, JS is obviously JavaScript. So React JS means React JavaScript, right? There is also another version of React available for mobile app development that is called React Native. So if you want to develop Android UI or iOS user interfaces, we have another option called React Native. So we are not covering React Native, we are covering React JS. That's React with JavaScript, right? And again, very recently, they've also announced a new update. This was just last week, right? You can see February 2024, they announced a new update and they are apparent. So again, this is just an addition to a couple of things. It's not a major update as such, but yes, they have a couple of new features as you can see. Right? This is all mentioned in the official documentation. And again, you can see the next major version is React 19. But then again, they are still preparing for it and it's still not officially announced yet, right? But then again, so the point is this is really up to date, right? As you can see, the latest version has just come out or the latest update has just come out a couple of days ago, which means React is definitely up to date, in terms of the industry usage. And again, some of the most popular applications, including Netflix, including Facebook, LinkedIn, all these applications have been built on React. How do we know this? Well, React helps us build, like I was telling you, something called the single page application. It's short for SPA, single page application. So what the single page application lets us do is it lets us create several independent components into one screen, right? So for example, if I just, quickly open up LinkedIn, just to give you the context of how this is actually working, let me just open it up. So here is my LinkedIn, right? And now, you can definitely check this out that there are several different independent components. What I mean by that is we have this section, for example, on the left-hand side where you can see some profile viewers, some post impressions, those kind of things, right? Then on the bottom right, we have a new messaging section or a messaging area. So if a new message comes up, the entire website will not reload, right? If a new message comes up, the entire website will not reload. Instead, only the message bubble or that message area will show us a number that a new message has come, right? Similarly, when we open this notifications or if we, let's say we like this post, for example, you will see this like will not interfere with the rest of the UI, right? We still have this section on the left. We still have this content on the left. Everything else on the bottom is also still there, right? We are not actually affecting the UI or we are not affecting other parts of the UI. So again, you will notice we are getting so many different things here. For example, we have this section called LinkedIn News. This is coming from a different place, right? This bit where we are talking about, okay, some profile views and stuff, that's coming from a different place. The news feed here, this is coming from a different place, and so on and so on and so on, right? So effectively, the idea is we have several different independent components, right? The news feed is independent of the rest of the page. The chat section is independent of the rest of the page. The profile statistics are independent of the rest of the page. So we are putting several independent components together on one screen. This is called a single page application, right? Where we have a bunch of different independent a bunch of different independent components. So the technical term React uses is a component, but for our discussion, we can also call it a section. So we have a bunch of different sections on the screen. So that's basically what we have. So again, React is basically a library, a toolkit, a UI framework. You can call it whatever you want, but basically it allows us to group together multiple things and create a single page application. A single page application is something that never reloads. Okay, so what I mean by that is when you switch between different pages, you will never see it reload. So again, if I go back to LinkedIn, you will see, pay attention to the browser, right? Over here, pay attention to the browser. So normally, if I refresh the page, you will see it loads up a new page. This is reloading, right? But let's say we switch to jobs, or we switch to messaging, or we switch to notifications. You will see, even though the URL here does change, we are never reloading the entire page. The page will never reload. This is what we call a single page application. So it means that everything at the end of the day is on a single HTML page for the browser. That means there is no reload ever happening, right? Which means we are never going back to the server or coming back from the server. We only send one request and we get the entire application as a response. That's it, right? So that is basically how React is going to work. Again, I'll tell you more about it when we create the application. I will tell you how this actually works and what React actually does for this. But that is basically what React is. It's basically a UI toolkit or a UI library for building, for creating single page applications. Having said that, let me also tell you that there are other frameworks out there as well, or other libraries out there as well. For example, another very popular framework is Angular, right? Angular JS is another popular framework. Then we have something called Vue.js. There's something called Ionic. So there are so many different frameworks that are available, or so many different libraries that are available. But again, React is one of the most widely used ones in the industry. So this is probably the most widely used one. React and Angular are both very popular. And that's why we have the terms MERN and MEAN. So when we have the term MERN, that's MERN. Right? So MERN stack refers to a React-based stack. On the other hand, there is another term called mean stack. So mean is where we are building the application using Angular. So Angular is meant for complex websites where you have a lot of different pages and stuff like that. Like an e-commerce page, e-commerce website where you have reviews, order tracking, profile, a bunch of different kind of things. So that's where, we have Angular. But in this case, React is useful for a single page application. We call it an SPA, a single page application. So yes, having this knowledge, let's now jump in and understand how React actually works. Right? So how can we create a React application and how it actually works? So the first thing that we have to do here is we have to install Node.js. Now I have told you enough times, I've also given this in the installation document, that you have to install Node.js on your system. I've already mentioned this so many times. So I'm assuming that hopefully everybody has Node installed by now, right? And we need to work with Node. So I've put the link in the chat. You need Node.js on your system in order to create a React application. If you don't have Node.js, then you cannot create React applications on the system, right? There is an online alternative to this, but since you want to create a project, right, your project, the major project, the assignment, basically the project for the for the internship, you have to install Node. There are online compilers which help us build React applications. But since you'll be working in teams and you are going to build your projects, please make sure you install Node. Again, if you just go to the GitHub repository, you will see that the installation instructions are already provided in the repository, right? So if I just hold on. So if I just go to the repository quickly, I open the repository here. You will see there is an installation document over here, software installation instructions.pdf. Right? So this is already available in the repository. It's been there for a very long time. And in this document, if you just open this up, you will see there is instructions. There are instructions for installing Node.js. So this is what you need to install in order to be able to build React applications. So again, Node is the runtime. This is what runs React application. So without Node, we can't really build a React application, right? So this is something that you must install for this, right? So I already have it installed on my system, but again, Without this, you will not be able to create React application. So I suggest that, if you haven't installed it already, please take some time to install it as soon as possible. So ideally after the session today, if you haven't installed it yet, just go ahead and install it, right? There's also a good question in the chat. This is Jagan. Jagan is asking, what is the difference between React JS and Next.js? So that's a good question, Jagan. Next.js is basically another framework which offers us a couple of more features on top of React. So for learning Next.js, first you have to learn React.js, and then you can add a couple more features on top of it. Right? So again, it is built on React. So first you need to know React, and then you need to know you can learn Next. So Next is another framework which is available that's based on React. So you can think of it as like a pro version of React. So everything that React does, Next also supports, and it adds a couple of additional features on top of that, right? So that's the idea. Now, on the YouTube side, we have a couple of questions as well. So the first question is, what is Flask? So again, Flask is a Python-based framework, and again, we cannot directly compare it with JSON. JSON is a data format. It's just a way to save data, just like we have TXT, Word document, PDF, PNG, JPG. Just like that, .json is a data format. It's a format to save data. Flask, on the other hand, is a backend framework that is based on Python. Right? So again, they are two very different things. Flask helps us write some code and logic, whereas JSON is simply a way to store and basically store and transfer data on the internet. So they are two different things. Yes, coming to how you create a React application. So again, on the screen, you can see the command. This is the command that we have to type in the terminal. The command is npx. NPX is basically node package extension, and then create React app space the name of the application that you want to give, or basically the name of the folder in which you want to create the application. So let me show you how this works. We have VS Code open right here. What I will do is I will go to terminal, select new terminal. And again, people who have questions, please put them in the chat. Please do not raise hands. I cannot give you mic access. So yes, I have been answering questions on both chats. So no matter where you are, YouTube or here, just raise your hand, just put your question in the chat and I will help you out. Yes. So again, let me just zoom in so we can see this better. And I will just, type the command in. So the command is npx. Hold on. Right? Npx create React app. This is the command, and then followed by the name of the app. Let's say we call it Hello World. So again, you can decide whether you want to follow camel casing, whether you want to follow hyphen casing, or whatever you follow, but whatever you decide, you should follow it throughout. Right? So I usually prefer camel casing. So we could use something like this, or for the application, just for the application name, we could use something like this. So again, the command is npx. This is node package extension. Create React app is our command, and hello world is the name of the folder or the name of the project that we are creating. Now you need internet for this command to work, because when we run this command, what this is going to do is this is going to connect to node. It's going to go to something called npm. That's node package manager. We'll talk more about that later. It is going to connect there, and it is going to download a lot of things. As you can see, it says installing packages. This might take a couple of minutes. So depending on your machine, depending on your internet speed, it is going to download a lot of packages. It is then going to create a folder for us. As you can see, a new folder has been created, hello-world. This new folder has been created, and then it gives us a couple of commands that we can run. We will explore them in a minute. And then it also suggests us that you begin by typing this. So first we cd, which is change directory. So we have to go inside the folder, and then npm start. So again, this is node package manager start. Npm start is the command that we use to run a React application normally. If you're not running it in test mode, if you're not running it in development mode, just normally to see the output, we use npm start. Right? So npm start or npm run start, these are the commands that we can use to start a React application. Right? So again, the command to create a React application is this: npx create React app followed by the name of the application. This name of the application is what the name of the folder will also be. So if you see on the left hand side here, if I just zoom in, the folder that has just been created, right? It is hello-world or hello-world. This was the same name that I had given while creating the application, as you can see, right? So this hello world is the same name that is used as the project name, folder name, whatever you have. So again, this is Krishna Kaushik. If you have a problem, please type the question in the chat. You're just saying, I have a problem, sir. Please tell me what the problem is, so I can help. Right? If you just raise your hand, I really can't guess the problem that you have. So please write your question and I will help you out. And yes, Akhilesh, we do use White as well. So again, there are different ways to create a React application. We have something called White, VITE as well. But then again, that's not, it is basically used for next projects. So if we have a next project, like a Next.js project, then we use White. But typically for a normal React application, this is what we use, npx create React app, right? And then this creates the application for us. Now, when a React application gets created, we can actually directly start it. So we can just cd into the folder and then we can say npm start. So again, you can just follow these two lines of code, right? The last two lines of code here that it suggests us automatically in order to start the application. And once we start the application, this is what we get. So if you're seeing the output, this is exactly what we get when we use or build a React application. This is the dummy default code that we get from the company. And this is the default code that we get from the company. Again, you can see there is a rotating React logo here. Then there is this one line of code, edit this file to reload. And then there is a link to the documentation that takes us to the same place that I've already shown you, which is react.dev, right? So this is basically the setup. Perfect. Now, this is something that we get by default. So we don't really, we have not really written this code. This is something that the React team gives us. So unlike other libraries or other things where we have to write something on our own, what React does is it gives us a ready-made application. So if I just expand on this folder, you will see there are so many different files and folders that are already available. And the React application is basically built on using all of this, right? So I will walk you through this entire thing one by one. But before that, let's take a quick round of questions if there is any confusion as of now. So again, we have talked about two things so far. We have broadly discussed what React is, and we have taken a look at how to create a new app. So it's very simple. Open a folder in VS Code, go to the terminal, type npx create React app and the name of the application that you want. And this will create a React project for us. It also gives us a starting code and everything. So even if we don't make any changes and we directly start that code, it is going to run. Right? You can see the output as well. I have shown you. This is the output that we get from the default React project, right? So yes, if there are any questions at this point, please put them in the chat. Let me quickly answer them, and then we'll move to the next part where I'll show you what are these files that are created, what job do they have, and how things work. Sure. So basically, what we have done so far, this is for Sonia, and again, everybody who's saying explain again. Let me quickly tell you, React.js is basically a library, a toolkit, a framework. You can call it whatever you want, but it basically gives us a way to create single page applications. Right? It gives us a way to create single page applications in JavaScript, using JavaScript. So basically, that is what we have. Now, how does this work? What do we have to do? Well, we have to go to VS Code. We have to go to File. So people who are getting these errors that you're posting in the chat, please pay attention right now. So I'll start this again. I'll do this one more time. Let me just stop the setup here and let me delete this entire folder, right? Done. So now what we can do is, first important step, don't open a file. Please open a folder in VS Code. So again, I have said this multiple times, go to File, go to Open Folder. When you go to Open Folder, please pick a folder. In my case, I have a folder for today's session. So I am opening that. This is called session 14. That's today's title. So I have just opened that. And then I open the terminal. So go to terminal, new terminal. The command is npx create react app. This is the command. And then you have to type the name of the application that you want to give. In my case, I'm calling it Hello World. So again, this is the command npx create react app hello-world. I will hit enter and that's it. It will then take in a few minutes depending on your system and it will try to create the application. Two, three things to keep in mind. Number one, make sure you do this in a public folder. Don't try to do it within C drive where you don't have access or permissions to create a new file. So I think everybody who has put that error in the chat, right? So this is for Shiva Narayana also, and this is for Kuldeep, you also. You have created something within C drive and that might not work. So please try to create something in a public folder like desktop documents, or some other folder like D drive or any other drive that you might have. So please try to create it over there. One. Number two, it could also be an issue, with the installation. So if it is still not working, try to check if node is installed or not. To check if node is installed properly, type the command node-v, right? So this will give you the node version, or you can also type npm-v. This will also give you the npm version. So if you can see the node version with this command, or you can see the npm version with this command, then that means your installation is successful. If you get an error while running node-v or npm-v, that means you have not installed it correctly, right? So that would mean you might have to uninstall it and reinstall it. Again, all the installation instructions are available in the repository as well. So if we just go to the repository, I have also given the same commands here as well. As you can see, that I've given node-v, npm-v to check. I've also linked you to the official website where you can find the downloads. I've also given you step-by-step instructions to install this. So in case you haven't done the installation, for everybody, this is in general. If you haven't installed Node, please do. And after you install Node, then this is how you build a new application. The command is very simple. It's npx create react app. Right? That's what we have. Again, for people who are asking the topic name is always available over here at the top. So please stop asking this question every day. I share my screen every day. The topic is always visible on the screen. So please check it from there. Right. Again, the topic name, as I've highlighted, is already on the screen. Perfect. Okay, let me just remove that. So again, this is an answer to a question by Tadi, Hema, Naga, Seva, Sai. If you have attended all the 13 sessions so far, you might know that I have been assuming that you have no knowledge of HTML, you have no knowledge of CSS, you have no knowledge of JavaScript, and now you have no knowledge of React. So if you have attended all 13 sessions previously, you have more than enough knowledge to understand what I'm explaining, right? So yes, it is not for merit people. Again, I've literally told you what is React. We are starting from there. I'm not even expecting you to know what React is. Right? So I really don't know how much more basic I can take this. I've been trying to start everything from the very basic, right? So I hope this makes sense to you as well and for everybody else as well. I hope I am explaining everything in detail and from scratch, right? So yes, if you have some concerns about this, please let me know as well. But I've been trying to go to as basic a level as possible and explain it from there, right? Perfect. So now once we create this React application, we can quickly run this. To run the application again, first up, we have to open this folder. So that is Hello World. You can go to CD. CD is change directory. This is a standard Linux command to change to another folder. So CD, the name of the folder is Hello World. And then we have the command npm start, right? Npm start. So npm start is going to trigger the React application for us and it will automatically open it in your default browser. In my case, the browser is Google Chrome and you can see this is what we get with the default code. Again, this is the command for creating a React app. So for people who are trying this out, here is the command on the screen. Sure, Kirti. I will ask the team to check why the daily test 8 score is 0. I have noted that. I will let let the team check on that and let you know in the next session. No worries, right? Perfect. So yes, this is how we create a new application in React. I hope this is clear now. Next up, let's go ahead and take a look at all the different files and folders that we get when we build this React application, right? So if you notice in VS Code, there are so many files and folders that we have. So if I just minimize the terminal for now, you can see on the left hand side, we have not created any of this. All we did was we wrote the command, that is npx create react app. That's the only command that we have written. Based on that one line of command or one terminal command, it has gone ahead and created so many different things for us, right? So again, before this, let me show you what npm is and where all of this is coming from. So npm is basically short for Node Package Manager. This is the official website, npmjs.com, right? So npm, what this basically does is it gives us a bunch of different packages that are available for JavaScript. So if I just search for the React package over here, right, and go there, you will see this React package is nothing but a JavaScript library for creating user interfaces. So when we write the command npx create react app, what it is doing is it is going to go ahead, go to npm in the backend, it will connect to our browser, go to npm.js, and it will install a predefined set of packages that we require for a React application, right? So it will basically install all of these things that you see here. That npx command will create all of these files and folders and install all the necessary packages for us. These packages are coming from this website called npmjs.com, right? Again, you can see there is one dependency here. There are about 1 lakh packages that depend on React. And there have been 1600 different versions of React. You can see in the last 7 days only, we have some 16 million downloads, something like that, right? As you can see. So again, this is the setup, and you can see this is very, very popular as a package, right? So we use React a lot, and this is where it is coming from, right? So this is npm. Npx is the command that we write. So just like if you write a Java program or a Python program, and you run this in the terminal, you say py3 or python3 filename.py, or you use some compiler to run a Java file. In the exact same way, to run JavaScript, we use the npx command, right? Npx, npm, these are commands that are made available into the terminal for us. So that is npm and that is npx. I hope that makes sense as well. Now, coming to the packages one by one. So as you can see on my screen, we have a bunch of different packages, and I'm going to just zoom in over here so that we can see them better. And let's explore what they do one by one. So we have several different files and 3 folders, as you can see. The first file is a README file. So if I just zoom out so that we can see the content of the file, you can see this README file has a special extension. It's called .md. MD is basically a text format, right? But it is basically markdown. So .md is short for markdown. This looks different when we upload this on GitHub. So again, if you go to our GitHub repository, right? And let me just open that up here. So this part of the repository, which is here, right? These session links, these URLs, this has been written in the markdown format. So if I just edit this, you can see the difference here, right? So in this case, I have just put dashes over here. And when it shows up, it actually looks like, if I just cancel changes, you can see it looks like a line, a proper line from left to the right. What I can also do is really quickly, if I just to demonstrate this to you, I can just make it hash. Let's make this double hash and make this triple hash. So in terms of a markdown file, you will just see what this does, right? Hash basically creates a heading. So again, this is not exactly visible right now. Let me just see why that is. Yes, I think I forgot to put a space between those. And there, I think they should do it. So now if I just commit the changes, you can see that this will create a bigger heading, as you can see, right? LMS link is now H1, and then this is H2, and then this is H3, and so on. So effectively, Markdown is a special way to write text, right? Which will in turn create HTML style syntax in terms of output. So it's a special file. We mostly use it for GitHub and project details, basically documentation, just keeping a track of what is going on, stuff like that. So that's the MD file you can see. This is also readme.md, which is available in the repository, this readme.md. So in a similar way, React gives us a default readme.md file, which talks about what React is, the command that we can run, etc., etc. We don't really need this. So I'm going to delete this. But this is a file that we get with React. It's just basic documentation, link to resources, those kind of things. Next, we have something called package.json. Now, this is a very important file. Never delete it. Even by mistake, we should not delete package.json. Package.json is the file that is keeping a track of all the packages that we need from NPM, which is the node package manager that I just showed you in the browser, right? So what this file does is, again, we have these packages, as you can see, React, React DOM, React scripts, Web Vitals, a few testing packages, right? And then we also have a bunch of commands. So again, when we run npm start, it basically starts the application. We also have a couple of other commands. We'll explore them with time. We'll not talk about testing and eject, but start and build we'll discuss, right? And then again, there are a couple of other browser things, etc., that I mentioned. So basically, this also keeps a track of our application name, our version of the application, dependencies, etc. So this is a very important file, and this will keep a track of everything that our application needs to run. So later on, when we discuss routing, when we discuss backend, we will install a lot of extensions or packages over here. For example, for routing, we have a package called React Router. So we need that. To connect to an API, we have a package called Course. We will need that. There's something called Axios. We will need that. So there are a bunch of different things that we will need, right, in order to run or basically create this application, which are packages. So this package.json, as you can see, it's a JSON file. So JSON is nothing but a way of writing text, right? So this is just going to keep a track of all the packages that we have or that we need in the application. Then we have package lock.json. This expands on package.json and further stores all the dependencies. So here, for example, in React, if you remember when we checked this on NPM, we have seen that there are some 1 lakh packages that depend on React, or React depends on one other package. So those things are noted over here. And you can see every package that React depends on, all of those things are noted in the package lock file. Again, the reason why it's called package-lock is because we are not allowed to make any changes to it. Right? So we should never make any changes to this file, even by mistake. Package.json we will change in some cases. We'll definitely change it. But package lock we will never change. This is automatically updated every time we modify the package.json file. It will automatically update package lock. So again, both of these files, what they're doing is they are keeping a track of everything that we need for our application to run properly. Then we have the git ignore file. So again, if you know Git or GitHub beforehand, you would know that this is basically, even if you don't, so basically GitHub is a platform where we store the code, right? I've been giving you the repository that is hosted on GitHub. So this git ignore keeps a track of all the files and folders that we do not want to store on GitHub. So again, in a lot of cases, there is a lot of local code. In some cases, we might have things like passwords, we might have secret keys, database connectivity details. All those things should never become public, right? So to store all those private details, we use git ignore. So git ignore is going to hide them from GitHub. They will be available only locally on our system and will never be pushed or uploaded to GitHub. Right? So that's git ignore. Again, it's not directly dependent on React, or it has not got anything to do with React directly. This is a Git thing, right? Then we move to the first folder. So let's start with the source folder. In the source folder, as you can see, we have so many files. The first file at the bottom is called setup tests. So this is basically for writing some test cases. We are not going to do that. So I'm removing that file. Then we have another file called report web vitals. This file, again, like the name says, works with some statistics. So this keeps a track of how often the project is opened, those kind of things. So some analytics are done. We don't want that. So I will delete that as well. Then we have logo.svg. This is the logo that we see on the screen when we open the React application. So this, again, the error is coming because we have deleted the file. But this rotating React logo, this is coming from this logo.svg. Again, for now, we don't need it. I will delete that. Then we have index.js. This is a really important file. Index.js is the starting point of our React application. Right? Just like we have the main function in case of C, C++, or Java for that matter. In this case, or index.html in a normal HTML page, that is the first page, landing page. So in the similar way, when it comes to React, index.js, index.js is our starting point. So again, the name has to be index. It cannot be anything else. Right? The name of the starting file or the place where the code will start running has to be index.js. This is true for all frameworks, no matter what language you use, Java, JavaScript, Python, PHP, Django, whatever framework you use, the first file is always called index. Right? So in this case, it's called index.js. Again, this is the starting point of the application. We don't need this part, so I am just deleting everything from here. And let's just say hello. I have just modified everything to a single hello on the screen. I'll tell you how this works as well. For now, I'm just removing everything that we don't need, right? Then we have index.css. So naturally, this is a CSS file, as you know, and we are also importing it here like this, import index.css. So since this is JavaScript code and not HTML code, we have to import it like so, right? So this is how we import a file. Again, we will discuss this in detail later when we create our own components in a few minutes, right? Then we have the app test file. Again, we don't really need this, so I will delete it. You can write some test cases over there. That brings us to another file called app.js. This was the initial output, and this is where the HTML code is. If you see, this div is an HTML element, and this is basically our HTML code. We have header, image, paragraph, a tag. We are all familiar with this code. But again, we will write this ourselves, so I will delete it for now. I will also delete app.css. So effectively, all we have seen so far are three important files. Number one, package.json. This keeps a track of all the packages and dependencies. Package log is automatically created based on package.json. And this further elaborates on those packages that we need, right? And finally, we have index.js. This is the starting point of our application. Remember, index.js is inside the source folder, whereas package.json is outside, right? So that's important. Index.js is inside the source folder. Then index.css is a normal CSS file. This is also optional. If you want to delete it, we can just go ahead and delete that. It will not make any difference for now because all we have right now is a simple h1 that we are putting on the screen. Perfect. That's the source folder. Now at the top, we have this folder called node modules. And this folder, if I just expand on it, you will see this will have so many other folders inside of it. These are all the packages that we need to run React code. So effectively, when we run the npm command, the npx create react app command, it will download a lot of files. As you can see, there are so many files and folders over here. These are all the different packages that we require in order to run React applications. And you will see there are things like, if you see here, JS DOM, right? So we have a JavaScript DOM package. You already know what DOM is, right? We've discussed that in JavaScript. That's document object model. So there is some pre-written code which lets us work with DOM, which is available in this JS DOM package that we have, right? So in a similar way, there are so many other packages that we require to run a React app. All of those things are listed over here. Again, we don't have to worry about this folder. It is automatically managed by package.json. So package.json, everything that is listed over here, the code for all of these dependencies is stored in the node underscore modules folder. We will never share that folder with anybody else because it's a very big folder in size. So if you just, open this up and you try to look at the size of the folder, we will see that this is approximately 300 MB, as you can see, right? Some 305 MB in size, which is very big, right? So obviously we don't have to install it on our own. It's automatically installed by when we run the npx command, this package is automatically installed, right? So this is again node modules is basically installed automatically from the package.json. So effectively all we have to do so far is to just run npx create react app. As soon as we run this command, it will automatically install everything that we need for a React application. That's basically what we have done so far, right? Then finally, what we have is the public folder. Now, this is a very important folder again, because this is where our HTML file, the only HTML file in this project will be. Let me remove everything that we don't need. We don't need this icon. We don't need these logos either. So let me remove them. We don't need manifest either. And we don't need this robots.txt either. So the only file that is necessary in the public folder is index.html. This index.html file, if you see, contains a lot of comments. Let me remove all the unnecessary part so that we can only focus on what is important. Right? So we don't need any of that. We don't need this. We already know about this, and we don't need this either. Right? So again, you can see I've just converted this to a bare minimum only required piece of code over here. And if I just tell you quickly, this is very simple. We know most of this. This is our standard HTML boilerplate. So we have doc type, we have HTML, we have head, title. This is if the viewport for responsiveness. This is our body, right? This no script tag is not really needed again. So we can delete that. And the only tag that matters over here is this particular tag, which is the div, right? So basically what React does in very simple terms, and now you will understand this because we have discussed the DOM, we have discussed document object model, right? So can you quickly put in the chat the method that we use to select this div from the screen? How can we select this div with the ID root in HTML or other in JavaScript? How can we select this div with the ID root in JavaScript? Can you let me know in the chat? Get element by ID. Perfect. So we have something called document.get element by ID, right? Now, if we notice the code written in index.js carefully, this is exactly what is happening here. If you see, we are saying const root is equal to create root, but over here you can see we have document.get element by ID root. So what we're effectively doing is how React works. The reason why we call it single page application is because literally there is only one HTML page in the entire project, which is index.html. Everything else is JavaScript and CSS, right? The reason why we call this a single page application is because literally there is only a single page in the entire application. There is only one HTML page, and we will never create another HTML page. There will always be only one HTML page, which is inside the public folder called index.html. The only line of code in this HTML file which matters is this div ID equal to root. So what React basically does is that it takes control of this root, which is an empty HTML element or an empty HTML container, and it puts whatever we want on the screen into that one root. That's it, into that one div rather, right? So if you notice the index.js file over here, then you will understand that what we're effectively doing is we are choosing or selecting that root from the screen, right? We are saying document.get element by ID root, and then we are treating that as the root of the React application, which is the starting point of the React application. And then what we're doing is we are saying root.render h1. So as of now, what we are saying is get the root from the HTML and put h1 in its place or inside it. That's it, right? So this is how React works. Whatever we want to show on the screen will be replaced on the same HTML page, will be refreshed in the we call it render. So the term is not refresh, but rendering, right? So render is nothing but showing this in the same HTML element. So we basically just keep modifying the root HTML div, which is this one div with whatever we want. So for example, it could be about page. So about will show up here. Then we go to sign up page. So we replace about and put sign up instead. Then if we have, let's say, product page, we replace sign up and put product instead. So we put everything that we want on the screen in a single HTML file. So effectively, when we take a look at it from the browser side, the browser only sees a single HTML file. The browser will always see a single HTML file. That is why we call it an SPA, a single page application. And that's basically what we have. So this is how React works, right? I have given you all the basics that you need to know as of now. I have told you what React is. I have told you how to create a React application. I have given you a walkthrough of every single file that is available in the React project that we get. And I've also shown you how to start this application, that is npm start. You have to be in the correct folder. So be in the correct folder, which is the hello world folder in our case. So you have to be inside the hello world folder, and then the command is npm start or npm run start. But in normal cases, npm start will work, right? So this is how the whole setup is. Okay. Now the next part, the final part for today, is to create a custom React component. This is going to be very interesting because right now we don't have any React component with us. What we want to do is we want to create a custom React component. But before that, let us understand what a component actually is. So let's discuss what is a component. Well, if you look at the screen right now, every single bit or every single section that you see is basically a component, right? So simply put, if I have to put it very simply, a component is a single independent unit on the screen. So if you see this particular output, then everything that we see, something like an arrow, as simple as this is a component. This icon here is a component. This collection of menu, or basically the menu of an application, is a component. And this bit is a component. Again, this plus minus bit is a component. It could be anything. This drop down is a component. So every piece, every individual piece of application that we see on the screen is a component, right? We can put together single components to create a more complicated component. For example, if we notice this menu right over here, let me use a different color. So let's use this. So if you see this menu, right, on the left hand side, so this menu is nothing but a collection of different icon components, right? So if you see the icon on the bottom, if we combine 4 or 5 icons, we get the menu, right? So this is nothing but a collection of multiple icon components. So again, this means components can be grouped together, they can be nested within each other, and they can also be combined. For example, here you can see this is a calendar component. So there is a date, sorry, there's a timestamp there, there is a date there, right? There's a timestamp. There are some tasks coming from the calendar. There's a button. Each of these things are individual components themselves, and we have put them together into a bigger component as well. So basically, any part of the UI that we have on the screen can be referred to or called a component in React, right? So any part of the UI that we see on the screen can be referred to or called a component in React. Right? So that's the React terminology again. We call it a component. Now, earlier when we had, React 14, 12, those earlier versions of React, we had two different types of components. So up to React 16, we had two different, even today, React does support two different components, but basically we had two options. There was something called function component, and then there was something called class component. So we had function component and class component. Function component was like we discussed JavaScript functions, right? So that's how we made a function component. Class component was a little more difficult to make, and it was more complicated overall. So basically, function components were meant for static data, and class components were meant for interactable data or dynamic data. But over time, especially with React 18, the React team basically encouraged us to stop using class components altogether. They said that from now onwards, we should only use function components. And they introduced a very important concept called as a hook. We'll talk more about hooks later, but with the introduction of hooks in React, components could do everything, right? So basically, Now, as of today, instead of having two different types of components, that's function component and class component, what we end up with, what we have are only function components, right? Which means they are much simpler to use. And we can use our JavaScript knowledge of functions to create them. We don't necessarily need to learn anything new as such. So that is what we have right now. Okay. So this is the setup in terms of components. Every single UI element that you see on the screen effectively can be called a component. Okay, perfect. Now I have a quick activity for you. So what I will do is I will open up a link on the screen, and what I want you to do, probably, if somebody wants to volunteer or participate, I want you to tell me which part of this application. So again, this is one of my own projects. I made this sometime 2 years ago. Let's see the date, 2020, so 3 years ago, 4 years ago as of this year. But yes, so what I want you to do is, whoever wants to give this a try, you can just probably raise your hand. I can give you access to the mic or something like that, and I want you to try to identify different components on this screen. So I'll show you one section. For example, let's take this section, the benefits of working with us. Can we identify what are all the different components over here? So again, whoever wants to go, I will just give you access to the mic, and all I want you to do is to just tell me how can you identify the components, or basically in this particular section, which of these could be a component, right? So let's see, I'll try this with one of you. If this goes well, otherwise I'll then just do it. I am not 100% sure about unmuting, but let's see. So there is one person who has raised their hand. I'm giving them mic access now. No, okay. I think let's just do it in the chat itself. So what you need to do is, again, I will just keep this on the screen for a minute, and I will give you 1 minute. You can tell me in terms of normal English. Don't go HTML, CSS, Flex, this, that. I am not asking you which CSS do we use to style it. What I am trying to ask you is, based on this diagram, like I was telling you, every single element over here can be called a component in React. So in a similar way, how can we break this down into components? How can we break this section down into components? That is the question for you. So again, I think we'll use the chat itself. That will be better. No confusion at all. So you can just tell me which part of this section do you think can be a component? And yes, how many components could there be? What could be in each component? Just quickly tell me. You should also have the option to annotate. I think that is enabled. Yes, I've enabled that. So you can select the pen option in the chat, and you should be able to sketch now. So just try that out. You can try to sketch it over here. Let's see if somebody gets it done. Yes, so one sketch is there, right? This is 1, 2, 3. Right. Okay. Done. This makes sense. So yes, this is correct, right? Let me just disable that now. Done. I have disabled it. And let me also clear everything. Done. So yes, like most of you did correctly, this is the way to do it, right? What we can do is we can go ahead and we can start from the, so there are two approaches. We either start from the largest component or the smallest one. We typically try to start with the smallest component. So in this case, that would mean, let's assume this one section, which has three things: an image, a heading, and a paragraph. This could be a single component, right? So that would mean we have three components, 1, 2, 3, like this. So these are three individual components. And then we can have the entire outer bit, this entire white background, as one component, which will contain this heading and the three inner components. Like we have seen, components can be nested. We can group them together. So this is how we can get that done. Okay. Now let's quickly try to create this in React. We have seen the distribution in terms of the UI. We have understood, okay, this is how we can distribute, this section into components. So now let me show you how can we actually create this in React. right? So again, we already have the application ready over here. We don't need to edit the index HTML. Mostly, we never need to do it. There'll be very few use cases for that. But yes, so now let me go ahead and tell you how to create a new component. So to create a new component, we make it inside the source folder. We can also create multiple folders here. We'll talk more about that when we make a project. But typically, a component file is a JavaScript file with a capital letter. So we start with a capital letter. For example, let us call it, what was that called? Let's call it work with us. That could be the name of our component. So let's create a new file, work with us.js. Again, this is the name of the component, work with us. Now, the first thing that we have to do here is to add one more extension. So this is something for you to make things easier. The extension is called React Snippets. Okay, it's called Simple React Snippets. This one, right? Simple React Snippets. So what this does is this gives us a bunch of shortcuts. As you can see, the list is available over here. So we can just use these shortcuts to create the components. Right? So again, you can install this extension. If you don't want to install it, you can work without it as well. Just again, open the extension section, go search for this and click on install. That's it. Now, what we need here is this. The first line that we need is this line, import React. So in a React project, the first step that we have to do is to install or import everything that we need. Okay, import everything that we need. So in this case, we only need one thing, that's React. React is basically, again, if you just command click or control click on this, this is basically a bunch of starter templates that we get from another file, that is the React package. Remember, we saw this package on npm React. So that's where this is coming from. Then the next thing is to create the function syntax. So it's a normal JavaScript function that you typically work with. Let's call it work with us. Okay, let's put that in and let's return HTML. So I'll just put h1 work with us. Now, this is the bare minimum that every component must contain. Okay, so the first thing is we have import React from React. This is what we need to create the component. Then we are creating a normal function, a normal JavaScript function, just like we created with normal JavaScript. If you remember, we have function, the name of the function, brackets, and then curly brackets. Within this, we will write all our logic. So logic will come here, right? And after all the logic is written, we return HTML. Okay, so this return could contain either another component or it can contain HTML. So again, that is up to us, depending on what we need to give out on the screen. So again, this return will either contain HTML or another sub component. That's what we need, right? So for now, we are just returning h1 saying work with us. And then we say export default work with us. So here import would mean get code from another file. Export naturally means make this available to other files. Now, where do we want to put it? Can you guess? So what we want to do is now, if we see the output, right, we can't really see anything on the screen except for hello. This is coming from the index file. So can you guess where we will make changes to see this on the screen instead of hello? Correct, in our index.js file. So we'll go to our index.js file and we will remove this h1. And instead of h1, we will put the name of the component, which is work with us. As you can see, it will automatically import it as well. If the auto import fails, we can import it manually. Okay. If the auto import fails, we can import it manually. And then this is how we call it, like a normal HTML element. Okay. So we are saying less than component name, like a single HTML tag. We call it like a single HTML tag. Okay. And that's it. Now, if you see the output, you can see we get work with us on the screen. So this is how we can create a component in React, right? Now, what we can do is we can add the rest of the logic over here. Okay. For example, in this output, remember, we had this benefits of working with us. Then we have few images and all. We'll discuss this later. But for now, what we have discussed is how to create a custom component and how to add it to the index.js file. So again, to create a custom component, we make a new JavaScript file. The file name and the component name are usually the same, and it starts with a capital letter, right? So you can see we have work with us where the W is capital. Even if it was a single name, for example, let's say it was only called work, we would still make it a capital W. Okay, we would still make it a capital W. So that's the setup. Okay, the file name and the component name are usually the same, and we started with a capital letter. To create a component, first we import React. In addition to this, if we need other things, we will import them as well. But this is mandatory. This is required no matter what we do. React obviously is always needed because we are working with React, right? Then we make a normal JavaScript function. And finally, at the end of our logic, whatever logic we perform, we return HTML. So this is called JSX. Right? This piece of code here is actually called JSX. This stands for JavaScript expressions. So it actually stands for JavaScript expressions. So this is basically writing HTML within JavaScript. You can see jsx.intrinsic_elements.h1. So effectively, it is HTML inside JavaScript. So we call it JavaScript expression, JSX. That's another short form that you will see quite often when working with React. But either way, so we return HTML. And then what we do is we export default this component. This line of code is important to make it available to index or any other component for that matter. If we remove this line, you will see we immediately get an error. It says export default was not found. So it is important to mention this export. Only then can this function be called or used in other components or other places. So what we have done is in the index.js, we are replacing the h1 that we had with this component. And this is HTML style syntax, if you see. Right? HTML style syntax, single tag, HTML single element like image. This is the same format that we use over here. Of course, instead of image, we use the component name. So think of it in this way that what we're actually doing when creating a component is we are creating our own HTML element. You can think of it that way. That helps you remember how this works. So we are effectively creating our own HTML element. That's what a component is, right? And then, of course, when we go further, when we discuss this in more detail in the next session, we'll talk more about this and we'll spend some more time creating proper outputs. Then we'll discuss routing, we'll discuss linking. All of those things will come in one by one, right? So yes, the file extension could either be JS or it can also be JSX. This will also work fine. So again, JSX, like I said, is JavaScript expression. So this file can also be a .jsx file. It's the same thing. But in our case, I will keep it to JS to keep it simple. In JSX, there are some places where the syntax is different, but in most cases, it will match with JS as well. So the extension could either be JS or JSX. It will be fine because it's a very simple setup right now. It will be fine. But in some more complicated cases, there are some syntax differences between JS and JSX. So we might need to be careful with those. But other than that, this is how it works, right? So again, if I quickly go back to what we have discussed so far, we have talked about what React is. So like I have told you, React is basically a framework or a UI library or UI toolkit that we have to create single page applications or user interfaces for the web. There is another thing called React Native, which works in a similar way, and it is available to create interfaces for mobile applications like iOS and Android. The way we create a React application is by running this command. So we have npx create React app and then the name of the application. So this is how we create a new React application. Then we have discussed the default files and folders, what they do. I have also deleted everything that we don't need, right? So we have deleted the README file, we have deleted the web vitals, the test files, app.js, app CSS. There are so many files that we have deleted. Within public also, we have deleted everything except for index.html and index.js and package.json. Those are the three most important files: package.json, then source, index.js, and public index.html. They are the three files that we need to get started. Again, index.js is a starting point of the program, and we can run this by running npm start or npm run start in the terminal. That's the command that we use to initiate the project, and it is automatically running until we stop the terminal. So until we manually stop the terminal or use Control C to stop the terminal, the React project will keep running and it will automatically reload as well. So right now it is still running, as you can see. I cannot type in any other command in the terminal because it's running the React project. So to stop this, we can say Control C. Either on a Mac or a Windows, either way, we use Control C to stop the project. Now this is stopped. So if you go back to the browser and try to reload this now, it will not work. It says the site can't be reached because right now we have stopped the project and it is no longer running, right? So this is the entire setup for a React application. Again, we have covered everything from the very basic. I have told you what you need to do to install. What you need to install for this. I have told you the starting command. I have told you everything about the default files and folders that get created, which ones we need, which ones we don't need, what each single file does, and finally, how to run the application as well. Then we have taken a look at what a component is. So every UI element, every UI part on the screen is basically a component. Right? We can create as many components, the smallest to the biggest component that we want in React. Then how they work is, well, we put the components on the screen, right? So we take a UI, we break it down into components. So like we have done with the output, we take a UI wireframe, we break it down into components. And then based on these components, we go ahead and we create one from scratch. So again, this piece of code that you see on the screen, this is the bare minimum code that we need while creating a React component. Right? So first line is import React from React. This is really important. Without this, nothing will work. Then this is the function that we have, normal function that we have seen in JavaScript. Function keyword, name of the function, curly brackets, the round brackets first, and then the curly brackets, and then we return HTML. So this return is different. This is new for us. This is something we had not done in JavaScript because there we are embedding JavaScript within HTML. Here it's the other way around. We are putting HTML inside a JS file. Remember when we used JavaScript earlier, we used the script tag in an HTML file. So the file extension was .html and we were writing JavaScript inside HTML. But here it's the inverse. The file is a JavaScript file and we are writing HTML inside JavaScript. So this is called JSX, JavaScript expressions. Right? This is what we call JSX. So we can also rename the file to .jsx extension. That will also be fine. Finally, we export the component so that it becomes available for other parts of the application as well. So we will want to call it an index. We might want to use it in another component, etc., etc. So for all of those use cases, we need to export this particular component. Now, technically speaking, there can be n number of components in any file. So you can create as many components as you want in one file. But again, in a practical scenario, we try to separate concerns. So remember, we've already talked about this separation of concerns. The idea is one file should deal with one component only. That's a real world setup. So we typically create one file for one component and that's it, right? So this is the entire setup. This is how we can create a new component in React. Again, for now, we have just seen basic creation, but with time, we will also take a look at, how to create some really complex components and then how to put CSS into this. All of those things will come in the next session. So we'll make this component. We'll try to create the output that I just showed you and then we'll try to add some CSS to it. We'll then add router linking, all of those things. So they will come up in the next couple of sessions and then we'll move to hooks. So after we figure out the display part of React, then we move to the logic and functionality with hooks and API calls. So that's everything that we will discuss in terms of React, right? Perfect. Now, the final part, as always, are a couple of quick questions based on what we have discussed. So again, I'll give you a minute. Please read the question and then put the correct answer or, put the correct answer in the chat. Put what you think is the correct answer in the chat. And then we can discuss and move to the next. Right. So the correct answer here is option 2, right? So option 2, that's to return the JSX like we have just seen. right? We return HTML within JavaScript. We call it JSX. So option 2 here is the correct option. Perfect. Here is the next question. So again, put your answer in the chat and then let's talk about it. Perfect. So the correct answer is option 4, right? We've already discussed this. We have the command npm run start, or we typically just use npm start. That's option 4. Here's the last question for the day. So here you go. Again, take a minute, think about it, and let me know the correct answer in the chat. Right, perfect. So the correct answer here is option 1, right? So index.js, like we've discussed, it serves as the entry point, the starting point of the application, because this is where we detect the HTML root element and then we start working from there. Right? So that's the first step. Perfect. The team is also just putting the attendance links in the chat. So again, make sure you fill in the feedback before you take a leave. And another thing, again, like I told you, the abstract and the group names, the list names, the group list basically will be coming to you by Wednesday. We have already started sending them out. So we have sent it for some colleges. But then again, there are a lot of colleges, a lot of people. So we are working on that. And by Wednesday, you will get the list, right? So you will get basically two things: the project abstract along with your group names, the member names that are a part of your group. For people who are asking about the topic is on the screen now. This is the topic for today: React fundamentals, React.js fundamentals, right? So yes, expect the abstract and the group details before the next session, that is on Wednesday. In the next session, like I said, we'll continue discussing React. There are a lot of things to talk about this. So yes, that's what's coming up. So yes, see you guys in the next session. Have a great day. Bye-bye.